G'day listeners, welcome to Barkarati, the Sailing Podcast. My name's Jordan Spencer and it is that time of the week where we get to hang out with some cool sailors, but of course I have to share the mic with my two idiot mates. So first off, let's welcome Mr. Brett Perry.
Greetings, exalted one.
Travelling man.
G'day world. Yeah, it's all about to happen, isn't it? It's all about to happen. I'm on my way to the US actually, so that's going to be exciting. I've never been there, would you believe it?
You've never been to the US?
Never.
What? Oh dear, you're in for a shock.
Yeah. Talk about shock. I'm on my little boat yesterday doing some work and this guy gets on and goes, "Oh, this is the Barkarati boat, isn't it?" And I've turned around and looked at him, I've gone, "Well, yes, you could say that." And he goes, "Which one are you?" Jordan.
Really?
The thing started going through my head and literally I said, "Well, how's the size of my head? Is it normal? How do you feel about that?" Anyway, no, it was very, very funny.
Oh, that's cool. All right, well, let's bring in the other bloke.
He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr.
Mr. Nick Boyce.
Did you just grab a piece of A4 piece of paper and say, "Oh, actually it is, check it out." Just pinch the ends. Here's the Barkarati boat.
Yep, there you go, the Barkarati boat.
Oh, I must admit, Jordan, I just had a little chuckle just as we lead into that. The listeners don't hear this, but in our Aussie, before we start for the listener, a normal term is, "Shall we kick it in the guts?" And I'm just thinking, that's probably a very Australian term.
That doesn't translate.
And any guess that we have, not from Australia, probably don't understand it that well.
No.
So as for the listener, let's kick it in the guts. Off we go. BP gets his guitar out, starts playing some music, and we're off. And it might be the guess, "Oh, dear, what are we in for?" But not today,
well,
I'm sure.
Let's introduce the guest so that person can give their reaction in case they didn't understand what we're saying. So it's an interesting one today. We're looking forward to this chat. We've gone to the US. We've got an Olympic sailor, a match racer, part of the Olympic team this time around, so 49er FX team. Welcome to the show, Maggie Shea.
Thanks for having me. For the record, I have no idea what "kick it in the guts" means. I did one word when I heard that, but just thought it was something you guys said amongst yourself.
It's Australian for
let's get this thing started.
Start. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next time you're on,
Traditionally, if you're like in an old beat up car, let's kick it in the guts. Let's go. Let's get this thing going.
Yeah.
So your next start line on the 40. So your next start line on the, say to your crew, "Let's get in the guts." It'll be hilarious.
Let's get started. Maggie, I've got to ask, before we go sailing, it was so hard for me not to put an O in front of your last name and use a crappy Irish accent to introduce you. Have you guys lost an O somewhere? We
actually think we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great question. My dad's side is 100% Irish. And when they came over, we do suspect that it was O'Shea at one point and then Shea.
Yeah.
As is the case with a lot of Americans when they immigrated. Sort of modified the name a little bit and tried to Americanize it in a way. So you're totally right. But a lot of my friends still go with Maggie O'Shea, as inaccurate as it is.
Wow.
We're very
That's
popular
very
in Ireland, I'll be honest. The Irish, we get a lot of messages from the Irish. So, we should just crack a beer.
This could help complete the family tree.
Yeah. Right. So for the listeners, Maggie, you're situated in Chicago, which is where the Sail GP will be next. Sailing centre of the world right now.
Should be an awesome show. It's a really cool venue at Navy Pier where they race inside the breakwater, and it's sort of this like perfect stadium seating situation, and I'm pretty excited for it. Will you guys be there?
I was supposed to be, but I couldn't get time off work.
BP, you're going to the US. Are you going to drop in?
I'm a little bit far away. I'm over at San Fran. So
they have these things, BP, called planes these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, kerosene canary.
And there's another thing called time.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. There's never
the
any
two
time.
together, and you add the two together, and what do you get?
Yeah. Are you sailing, Maggie?
No, I'll be sailing my FX in Newport. We're training for our European Championships in July. Okay. So,
all right.
No.
So one of the things I was going to say in my intro, I completely forgot, is that one thing that has been really good for us putting together a podcast has been two things: there's COVID and injuries, because we've got a lot of people that are sitting around, can't do much, and you're currently injured. I think you've got a bit of a knee problem.
That is true. Yep. It's the second injury of this year, both of which were totally not sailing related. So that's not great. But this one was just I hyperextended my knee, going about 2 miles per hour on my bike. I had a very uncoordinated moment and hyperextended my knee and sprained some stuff. And it's just taking some time to heal the bone bruise and everything else. So
we've got a theory.
Was no real damage, just bone bruise. I mean, it's painful, but it's the ligaments that you really worried about, right?
Yeah, I got really lucky. Mm-hmm. And ligaments and tendons are good, so it's sort of a waiting game. Okay. And I've learned the older I get, the longer those waiting games get. You know, when they give you that range, I'm like, okay, I know how this goes. I'll manage my expectations here. So,
I pulled a calf muscle in about 2017. Still recovering.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Don't. One of the theories we have on bar karate is that any good injury follows the words, "Watch this."
Yeah, I really wish I was doing something exciting, and I really wasn't. It was like, those moments when I think when actually you're just doing something completely normal and you don't perceive any risk, you kind of turn your brain off. And I really did. A lot of us campaigners ride those foldable bikes.
Yeah.
They kind of look like circus bikes with the tiny little wheels and a seat really high. I was on one of those and I kind of lost my balance just a little bit and put my foot down. And I think in my mind, I thought I was about as far away from the ground as I am on my road bike. But I think I was like a few inches off. I fully hyperextended it. And I felt so stupid that when I showed up at the boat park, my teammates were like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, I don't want to talk about it. It just hurts a lot. So I sailed the next.
Sorry, Maggie. I'm sorry, Maggie. I've just got this picture in my head of this little circus bike, and you in these big shoes, and a red nose, and a red frilly hat, and a stack. Oh God, that's an early morning thing.
It was so exactly, and this uneventful moment that I had a spinnaker on my bag, and a backpack on. And I was a complete yard sale. Like everything went everywhere. And I dramatically fell down completely in the middle of the road. I wasn't even going that fast. Maddie Stevens, a nice Kiwi guy, came up behind me. "Oh my God, are you okay?" I was like, "I'm completely fine. Just very embarrassed and bummed about this." So that's a fair visual. Yeah.
Not only before an accident like that happens, where we say, "Watch this," it generally follows with a whole lot of laughter afterwards.
Which you've succeeded to do. So well done. And you've turned an uneventful moment into something really special.
But it's amazing how fast those little circus bikes go, because you had like a parachute strapped to your back just to slow you down.
Exactly.
Has it got little crank pedals and you've got to pedal really fast? Or?
Yeah, all right.
Fast, hey, there are no gears.
It's a sailing podcast. Come on, you blokes.
This is 2 weeks in a row we've talked about bikes. I guess we've got to talk about how you get into sailing. Obviously, I think it's a family thing for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I started sailing with my grandpa, actually, way back in the day. My grandpa was a big sailor in his day and time. He sailed in the Great Lakes a lot, specifically Lake Michigan. And he had a big boat most of my life. He always loved to have a big keelboat. And my cousins and uncles and sisters, our sister and brother and parents, we all sailed together on his boat in the summertime, and I fell in love with it. So it was a really family thing to begin with. And then I started getting more competitive in like junior high and high school and fell in love with racing. But way before that, my family was into the deliveries and the boat work and the, all of the other stuff that makes sailing so wonderful, the community aspect of it. And so that's really what hooked me.
It's cool. One of the visuals that we see in Australia with Chicago is that it gets cold and icy, and like you could have easily started on an ice boat in our minds. Like is it all year round for sailing in Chicago or not? Or we
No. Yeah, you're totally right. It's very pleasant and beautiful 4 months of the year. So you try to sail every weekend and every day you can in those 4 months.
Yeah.
And then it's absolutely miserable on either end of it. Like the coldest, worst sailing I've ever done in like October and November in the States. And then you start again if you're really psycho in like March and April. But the water's unbelievably cold, and I just never, ever want to sail in the cold again. But at the time I was into it, and I was, we were like hardcore in high school, and we'd go out and deal. And now at my age, I'm like, I have zero interest in chipping ice off my boat to go sailing. Yeah. So it toughens
another aspect though, growing up on the Great Lakes is fresh water. So nice. As we start out here, well, for anyone along the coast, one of the worst things about learning to sail is getting splashed with salt water and salt water in your eyes and what have you. And I remember the first time I went up to the Great Lakes and first wave that comes over, you kind of brace yourself and it's, hang on, it's just fresh water.
Yeah,
it must be a whole different concept.
Yeah, I think you realize what an irritation saltwater is.
Yeah.
When you first start sailing and have to rinse your boat off, and the swimming is just not as pleasant. You realize like how spoiled we've been, and we are here for sure. I mean, we filled our water bottles up in the lake before.
Wow. That's crazy.
Offshore a bit, but yeah.
So when you first got into the sport, obviously it sounds like you had a great foundation, because you got your family, and as you said, you do all the. It was not just sailing; it was all the maintenance and all that sort of culture of sailing. So you sort of. It sounds like you've got a really good foundation growing up as a kid. What was the first boat that you felt passion for? Like the as a kid you go, can't wait to sail that, or that boat's cool.
I was too big to sail opties when I started really racing, so I raced butterflies, which you guys probably don't know what they are. They're these goofy.
They're little insects that fly around in the
butterflies.
That too. And then there's
add that one to your bow, Bicey. Hey, the rainbow and the butterfly.
Butterfly.
Yeah, that's going in the repertoire for sure.
Yeah, look that one up, mate.
There are a lot of rainbow sails. Yeah, and they're blunt bow. They're made for inland lakes, no waves. And those are a great little starter boat with just a mainsail, and you sail them with two people as a kid. That was fun. But as soon as I got into a laser, I was like, this is the best boat ever, And then a 420, this is the best boat ever. And then 29, this is the best boat ever. So every kind of new boat I sailed, I just kept feeling that same, oh my God, I love this boat, and now it's a 49er, and it'll probably be a different one in a couple of years when I can't sail this thing anymore.
Yeah.
But Maggie, we surely can't go past your grandfather's boat, Wind Dancer, Great Lakes 70.
Yes.
Beautiful boat. How many Chicago Max has that particular boat done?
So many. Yeah, I'd love to talk about my grandpa. So John Netto was my grandpa. He had 7 versions of Wind Dancer. Mm-hmm. And when he passed in 2016, he held the record for most number of Chicago to Mackinac races. I think it was 64.
Wow.
And it was basically 64 on both sides. So Chicago to Mac and Bayview to Mac.
Oh, wow.
And it was so, I feel so blessed to have spent that time with him and sort of share this passion with him, because he really taught me some awesome lessons about the sport. And he sailed with people for like 50 years. He had some of his old time friends that were just like family members, and they would all crash on the boat, and then when the boat was in town, they'd stay at the house, and it was just such a close group of awesome people. But he also every day, or every race I was on, every offshore race we did before the race, he'd kind of gather everyone in the cockpit, and I specifically remember him saying, thank you all for being here, thank you for joining us for this race, and there's no place I'd rather be right now than here with all of you guys doing this race. And that was a really genuine sentiment, and I think about him all the time when I'm sailing, and I'm just like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be, when you're just so in the moment and psyched to be there. And that really reminds me of him. So, yeah, thanks for letting me think about him.
So after 64 journeys, well, it must have been more, to Mackinac Island, was he kind of the unofficial mayor?
So the funny thing is that he knew everyone. Everyone knew him.
Yeah.
He was just that infectious, awesome personality that he was always smiling and cracking jokes. But he wasn't really up for the parties. That wasn't his thing. So he'd dock and get out and get back to my grandma, and she'd always have amazing pies and stuff waiting. I mean, so my grandma would cook we'd feast on the way up. Absolutely, like casseroles and baked goods and just apple crumble. I mean, just ridiculous. First time I did a pro program and people were eating freeze-dried food, I was like, what is this? What's wrong with you guys? What's the big idea here? Is this a joke? We're going to eat this dirt for 3 days? Like, you got to be kidding me. Where's the hot food? We were eating like 3 hot meals. We ate better on that race than I do on shore. So it was a really fun part of it,
Sounds like wonderful memories. Wonderful memories. Yeah. So that adds to your conversation from last week, Jordan, that I missed last week, obviously, but you talked about having a boat for a long, long time. Remember you were talking last week about having... Yeah, so there you go. 64 years. Well, it's not necessarily the same boat, the same name.
Yeah, the passion for sailing for that long, which is, I guess, the whole reason Barkarati exists, to bring people into the sport. So to see someone that had that much passion and bring... Your grandfather absolutely brought a lot of people into the sport by the sounds of it and kept them in the sport. So, mad respect for that and, the passion that shows. One thing that is interesting as Australians, we look at the US youth system and we don't understand it. Because in Australia, what happens is... You get thrown out in the water, when your parents want to go for a beer, they go, there you go, there's your boat, off you go. And then as we get older, into our sort of teens, when we get a little more mobile and independent, what we all do is we rock up and go, shall we go for a surf today? Are we going windsurfing? Do we go sailing? What do we do? And there's no formality to it. It's just go sailing, although I must admit it's changing a bit now. Your system is the I don't know, really. Like, you go through at the school age, you go through a bit. And then once you get to university, you've got this whole intercollegiate thing, which you went through, that process. I think you were a captain of the Connecticut College or something. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct. I sailed for Connecticut College for 4 years. And my teammate was at Old Dominion University, so we sailed against each other for 4 years, actually, and then rejoined. Yeah.
So university sport in Australia is just an excuse to have...
Go on, Jordan.
Try and not get arrested, drink as much as you can, and then, your warm-up is a port before you go on at 10 in the morning, sort of whatever it is you're doing. Like, it's a hardcore party for a week.
Let's be clear. Now, this is not a derogatory towards Bice and myself. We didn't go to uni.
Yeah. I had... But
Jordan, tell us more.
Yeah. There's things I can't say, but let's just say I've been banned for life from a lot of pubs around Australia with a lot of university mates. But the point is the whole process is quite different. It's a lot more serious than we take it here. Is that right? Is it fun, or is it the element of the fun, or is it a bit serious?
Well, I think you can go to... we're talking specifically about college sailing.
Yeah, at this stage,
Yeah, you could go to a college that's got a club team and largely does a handful of championships, but really are just there it's sort of recreationally, and they party really hard together. So there is that option.
Okay.
I think most sailors in college, though, choose their college first, or what type of college they want to go to, and then they sort of find a team that fits them within that, if it makes sense.
Right.
You can kind of take it as seriously as you want.
So the sailing side, though, is that just classed as another sport? So it could be athletics, it could be football, whatever it might be, or you choose sailing and they have the infrastructure and resources in place to support that? Is that generally what happens? Yeah.
Exactly. In a lot of schools, it's considered like a varsity sport. Which would be just a little bit more serious and more funding, more structure, full-time coach, as compared to like a club sport. And for those teams, I mean, I had a wonderful experience. It was awesome in so many ways. You show up, your school has 18 boats. You go sailing 4 days a week for a couple hours after classes. And then the coach drives you to a regatta. Everyone piles in the van Saturday morning. you go do full days of racing in another person's boat. You know, like you don't have to set it up and deal with the logistics and stuff. And then you go home Sunday and go to class the next day. I thought it was one of the best things in the world. You know, you got hundreds of starts and tactical situations. And I thought it was a great place to really get a good foundation of racing for later in life.
Yeah, well, your approach at university was different to mine because you won the Brooks Brown Award for outstanding leadership, scholarship, and sportsmanship. I made the team of the century for my university, but for
other reasons.
He was in the other reasons team.
In the other reasons team, yes. So you obviously, you took it pretty seriously. Have you always taken the sport seriously, or it's, like how deep does the passion run for you?
I think I started taking it very seriously in high school, and when I thought, hey, this is something I want to go to the Olympics. I want to make this happen.
Right.
And then I think sometimes I didn't take it seriously enough in college, partied a little too much at times for sure, because that temptation is always there. And then at other times I took it way too seriously and probably drove my teammates nuts, insisting on 6 a.m. Friday morning workouts. And if you're not going to make it, then, I think I was sort of all over the place at times as probably a lot of young adults are.
Yeah.
But then right after college, Steph and I teamed up again and we went hard and fast toward our dreams.
I guess it's just finding that balance, right? As you were growing up and experiencing life and doing what you're doing, and probably your background as well with your grandpa and your parents, and they would have been a fairly strong guide, I would be suggesting.
Yeah, for sure. And my parents, education, college is really expensive in the States. And so we took the academic component really seriously. And if I wasn't performing academically, then I was not going to be sort of allowed to sail. And I also felt really strongly about that because I do want to pursue a business career later in life.
Yep.
And so GPA is important, and that was always sort of the priority and the non-negotiable. But sailing was wonderful. And I've chosen a school that allowed me to do the Olympic trials in 2008. So my freshman year, they sort of said, yeah, you can miss a bunch of classes. I went to this tiny liberal arts college. You miss a bunch of classes, go to the Olympics. We think that's important. Or the Olympic trials, sorry. We think that's important and it's what you want to do later. So they were really supportive. So you can kind of find the right place that helps you find that balance.
Did you choose Connecticut College based on the sailing program?
Yeah, it was in the right academic level, and then the sailing program is really what I wanted. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
It's
really cool.
interesting, isn't it? Like it's a completely different thought process, like as you say, because you pay so much to go to your, what we call university, must be a big thing. With that sort of before you got to university, what was the most important thing? Is it the yacht club, that you grew up in, or is it family? What drives the level of your sailing experience before that stage in the US?
So I think it's still the same situation because I've been chatting with some high school kids lately, and it's basically if your high school program has a good infrastructure for a sailing team, whether it's club or varsity is really specific to the states and the different schools. That's a great avenue to get a ton of racing experience. But if not, then you really have to lean on local yacht clubs. And sometimes you'll see high schools make like conglomerate teams where they'll say, okay, none of us have enough to make a team. So these 5 high schools are going to come together, sail together in like an unregistered team, kind of piggyback on a yacht club and show up that way. But I think the vast majority of sailors, definitely during the summer, they kind of find clubs to pursue their racing.
Okay. And so are you buying your boat, or you're using like school boats, or do you have both? Like the school has boats and then you have your own personal boat?
Both. So 420s, often the schools are the clubs that they race out of. We'll have 420s or FJs and sometimes lasers. But if you want to do a competitive laser campaign, you generally have to get your own. But there's always options to borrow. I mean, my teammate Steph Roble and I sailed 29ers back in high school together.
Yep.
And neither of us could afford a 29er. So we borrowed one from our yacht club, and this boat looked like it had fallen off a trailer. Like the gel coat, the fiberglass repairs were just huge.
Wow.
And we were just so psyched to use it. So there's, there are opportunities to borrow boats, and clubs are purchasing a lot more high performance boats these days. So
yeah,
that's actually one thing I want to talk about. And I may have this completely wrong, but there was a lot of about the US sailing team, and obviously you play a big part here. But there's been the emphasis on high performance boats within colleges now, I believe. Out the back of KR joining with US Sailing and the whole reconfiguration of the US Sailing team. Is that what we're seeing rolling out now?
Yeah, Paul has an amazing vision for the sport, and he's working a lot with the college sailing coaches to get more integration and even high performance. Yeah, I think his goal is to eventually have high performance boats at the championships to move us away from the 420s and FJs. Ultimately, 420s, there are so many 420s and FJs right now, and they do provide this bulletproof, awesome, very low tech platform, for a lot of racing.
Yep.
And so there are kind of pros and cons to both.
You have to ask, though, now that we've brought up kayak and US Sailing, I won't go to the hard questions yet, but there's a critical question that has to be asked, is there a mandatory requirement for the male sailors to grow moustaches?
Oh, definitely not one I'm supposed to tell you about.
I just can't wait for the next Worlds and all the US blokes turn up with moustaches.
Jesus.
So funny. There was a while that they liked the mullets, but so did there's some other teams that are into the mullets too.
It's a Kiwi thing. They've never gone away from the mullets.
They're still sticking with it.
The K1W ones, they're just a weird nation of strange human beings. Yes.
And it's the men. It's really the men that are showing up with the weird facial hair and the hairdos.
It's changing. It's changing.
It cannot be denied.
If you want bad haircuts, go to New Zealand. And
noted.
The only thing is, everyone will be thinking, the Kiwis will be angry with us right now, but they'll take it as a measure of pride. They're very proud about it.
I love a good mullet.
Yeah. So we've come out of college. You've come out at that time that you came out. You pretty much rolled straight into the world of match racing for women. That was around, that was when there was big opportunities. There was a lot of match racing going on. And being in Chicago, you're well placed for that sort of stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. Steph and I both became interns at the Chicago Match Race Center. And that was really our stepping stone. We were really lucky to have that opportunity where we could work as many days as we needed to pay rent, basically work the summer and then have time off in the winter to sail and compete. And they were really supportive. Don Wilson was really supportive at the time, and he still is, of our sailing campaigns. And so the Chicago Match Race Center sort of family was extremely generous and instrumental in us in our beginning of our pro sailing career.
So you've gone, as Jordan was going to talk about then, you've gone through that, I guess, the beginning of it all. When did it become, you said earlier that you wanted to do this, full-time or professionally. When did it actually turn over to that point? Because, college sailing, you just said there's a big platform, lots of people doing it. How, first of all, did you decide? And secondly, how do you rise above? Is it just performance? Is it passion? What is it?
Well, I think the decision point is when you realize, okay, I'm making very irrational decisions based on, none of these economic choices make sense. I'm being a very irresponsible adult, I want a family someday, and I'm taking steps backwards away from that by further committing to this professional sailing career. So those were kind of the decisions in my early 20s that I realized I'm really into this. I'm willing to take low-paying jobs that don't have any job security. I'm willing to miss every single family wedding and friend's wedding and, not have any disposable income and just try to put everything I have into this, and that was sort of a pivotal couple of years for me in terms of really organizing my life around what I wanted to do. And when did I start getting competitive? It was, I did an FX campaign for the Rio quad and did not win the trials. I sailed with 4 different skippers in 4 years. So, I'm definitely probably must be somehow crazy or difficult to get along with. I'm on my 5th skipper now. So, and we joke about that a lot. But that I realized was just really laying the foundation in a lot of ways for this campaign with Steph. And we both went full time and really aligned ourselves and organized our lives in a similar way, starting in 2016.
Have you found you sort of matured and found it a bit easier going? You've settled with Steph, it seems. Is it a bit easier now than in the past? Because as you said, you did wash through a few skippers.
Yeah.
You sort of settled a bit now.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. I mean, and it wasn't that I didn't get along with skippers. Oftentimes we were just at different points in our lives. I sailed with two women that were in their 30s and their 40s, and you're just at a very different point when you're like 24, and you're all in and they're not.
Yep.
So Steph and I luckily are the same age. We're on the same page about a lot of things. And we first sailed together when we were 16. And then we started really full-time sailing together again when we were 21. And then on and off, as I was doing my first campaign in the FX, Steph was doing pro sailing, but we were still sailing together in match race stuff occasionally. Mm-hmm. But we continue to grow, and working on our teamwork and our communication and all of that is just an ongoing, evolving process and goal. And some months we're really super solid and totally aligned and communication's great. And then some months, like, we don't agree on the day of the week and the time of the day, like we just, that's just that chafing, I think, is a really normal part of a campaign that, it involves two people specifically. We spend so much time together. We share money, basically. We fundraise, we live together, we travel together, we compete together, and we're not married, but we sort of have to make it work in some ways that feels like we are. And so I think that's a huge challenge for any double-handed team. And I feel lucky to take it on with a really great friend of mine, but it's something that as we grow up and change as people, we have to keep working on.
Yeah, it's
our relationship.
Permanently evolving, yeah.
We're sort of opened up into where you are now. We're into this sort of era with the FX and you and Steph sailing together. You made the trials, you went to the Olympics, so you got to your goals. We won't talk about the Olympic event just yet, but I want to talk about, the detail that you've said. You're like a married situation, which we've all been through. We've all done the dinghy sailing. We know how intense it gets.
I thought you were going to say marriage then.
Oh, no. The relationship, I wanted to talk about the relationship with coaching and how that works and how US sailing works in that. So because obviously a coach fitting in these days, the level of involvement with coaches into that team dynamic is a lot more involved. But also the level of the dynamic of how US sailing works has changed so much in the last few years. And I'm really interested to see your views on where sailing is going and how that whole thing's going to happen in the US, because, obviously you guys were the glamour team in 84, and it's, are you going to go back to that stage is what we're trying to work out. Do Australians have to pick it up, or, do we have to find a few more gingers in Australia? Actually, you've got a tinge of the ginge, haven't you? You could have a bit of natural ability.
What was the question? What was the question again?
Yeah, I'll get back to that. A tinge of the ginge.
Kick it in the guts. What?
You're learning some. Some Aussie lingo.
Clown bikes, fast little pedals.
Let me clarify. So, if you look at all the champion sailors from Australia, they've the best have got a bit of ginger in them. So we call it the
bit of red hair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you for that translation. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So now the question is, one, how does the coach work in the relationship? Two, then we want to evolve to a discussion around where US sailing's going and how it's helped you into that whole phase. That's the gist of where I was going.
Cool. Okay.
And have you
so
got
none
some
of us
ginger?
have red hair on our team. Just to get, so that, I didn't realize that was a disadvantage, but I guess I do now. We found our coach, Julia Conti. I shouldn't say we found her. I sailed against her in the Rio quad. She's a 4-time Olympian. She finished 5th at the Olympics, and she was such an intimidating competitor. Like, so many of us were she would scream on the water, and we laugh about it to this day, how vocal she was. And it's not my style. So I just remember she really stood out to me. But when we saw her in the boat part, when Steph and I saw her at Keel Week, she was coaching a team of pretty new guys. And she had made so many classic coaching errors this weekend. We loved hearing about it. On the one hand, we were like, you're coaching now, we want to hire you.
Right.
And then on the other hand, we're like, so how's coaching going? Are you enjoying this? She's like, I sent my sailors to the wrong coach. I forgot my bag of sailing gear. I didn't have, and it was just, she was just like going down the list. We were like, oh my God, no VHF. Like, how long have you been doing this? And she was laughing at herself. It was all fine. But she was fresh out of sailing, right into coaching. And she's been a fantastic addition to our team. She's such an intuitive sailor. And she's just taught us so much about the boat. So Julia is our third team member, and we just can't, we feel some days like we just can't be without her. It's a huge part. I think sailing in general, I think the double-handed and I think all of the high performance boats have become much more reliant on coaches, because partly the nature of the boats, it's physically exhausting to be on a 49er for 3 hours, and so those minutes that you're winged up and resting are pretty valuable on windy days. We also break stuff a lot, and she's got a big spares kit on board. I've injured myself now a few times, and that's pretty critical to have a coach out there. But the development of like speeds and tuning and the technology we can use now is really, you need a coach in a lot of ways to utilize some of the instruments, to the best ability. So unfortunately, I know that coaching adds a lot financially to a campaign. And so the more that the national governing bodies can offset that, the better, for sure. But for us in 2017, we just said, we need the best coach we can find. Julia's that person, and we got to fundraise to pay her.
Right.
And there were times during that quad that we didn't, or at the beginning of that quad, that we didn't qualify for the US sailing team. So we were largely on our own and raising between 250 and 400,000 a year to compete. That first squad, 250 to 350. And a big portion of that is the coach. That's the most expensive line item on the budget. And since then, US Sailing, Paul specifically, has fundraised a lot more money for the program. And so they actually hired her after the Olympics to be part of the US coaching squad. So that was a huge relief for us and burden off our shoulders. But,
a lot of money.
Talk to us about some of the technology. Like, obviously, you've probably seen it from just jumping out on the water to now. There's going to be cameras, there's instruments, all sorts of stuff and the analytics afterwards. What do you actually experience on a normal day out there on the water?
Well, we stopped using drones when Julia sank her second drone in the water. After that, we said, okay, let's put that program on pause. And one was not her fault. It was totally malfunction. And the other, I don't remember, but they both went in the piss. So those were expensive weeks for her. But we started using TrueSail last quad. And that was really cool. So TrueSail has a load cell that sits on the back of the boom and measures leach load in a couple ways. You can measure, just tell me to stop if I'm totally nerding out, but it can measure, like how much load there is, but also the volatility of the load and how many changes per minute that load is. And so that's been really interesting to learn about how different masts behave with different settings. And we're really just looking at numbers and then, okay, that felt good, and let's associate a KPI with it. And then, okay, let's try to achieve that again later, and I learned a lot about how the mast behaves with different rig settings from that load cell. We also have there's a sensor that sits on the rudder and it originates from the gantry and then goes out to the rudder. And so it goes, back and forth. It articulates, and that gives us a reading about how much the rudder's moving side to side. And we've got a similar thing on the boom. So how much I'm sheeting and letting the boom in and out and in and out. And I think we've all had those days where the skipper says, you're not sheeting right. And the crew's like, well, you're driving too much, and well, you're moving the sheet too much. Well, you're moving the tiller too much. And you just go back and forth and
check the numbers.
Yes, exactly.
Steph,
so
talk to me.
Totally. And it also has a inclinometer, so you can tell the pitch and heel side to side. And again, the actual readouts are pretty cool when you can tell, okay, what I think is flat is totally not flat, or what I think is, windward heel is not. So that's always helpful. But again, you get those changes per minute, so you can see like how steady is the boat going through the water, and at the end of the day, you can get really scientific and go crazy with the data, but then you're actually just trying to keep the boat flat and put the sail in the right place and leave it there, and put the tiller in the right place and leave it there. Like the more things you've done well, the less you kind of have to do is sort of the conclusion over and over again. But the instruments have been really cool. So the coach has an iPad, Julia has an iPad that she's determining like with the filter rates, how fast the data is changing and how many seconds it's averaging over, but also what we see, so sometimes she can tell we're just staring at the TrueSale screen. Turn that thing off, So
it's a fine line between the technology side of things and also remembering to go the right way around the course. That's the key.
Right. Just keep
and
both
not
flat.
capsizing. And not capsizing.
Yeah. The one thing I will say from a coaching perspective is the thing I look for on a boat is less about the hull but more about the rig. I try and coach to keep the rig as stable in the air as possible. So that's the one thing that, like if you're in really rough water and you can keep your rig really stable, that's the one thing that I sort of try and push for.
If you're looking for another coach, Maggie, Jordan's more than happy to give.
No.
That's awesome.
He's earned his nickname, the Super Coach. So just so you
nice.
know, he is the one.
Yeah, the irony. My mates are idiots, that's all we'll say. But anyway, so, that technology stuff is quite interesting. And I will say if you do get a chance, I know you're going to be in Newport, you said, but if you did get a chance to get to SailGP, you should go to the Oracle, if you can get to the pits where they do all the work, into the Oracle container, which shows you the data points that I think they've got like 5,000 or 8,000 data points on the boat. The amount of data they're pulling off the boats, or even talk to one of the engineers from the teams, it'd be the go. But it's really interesting if you get to find out what the sort of stuff that they're looking at. It's insane how much. It's like a Formula One car nowadays.
Mm.
Yeah.
They even measure the level of sweat dripping down
Your butt crack.
one of the sailors' backs. Mate, mind above the navel, please. Like, this is a professional show. But you guys were so worried what I was about to say.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, I could see Maggie's face. She's going.
Yeah, the relative humidity is measured.
Play a comfort
That is
level.
wild.
Play a comfort
and
level.
they have a lot of that, like during the racing, though, right? Like I was listening to your interview with Kyle, and he was talking about watching the screen for their time on distance. I mean, that's a really different dynamic than not saying that they actually just do that and watch screen, but he was saying that some readouts can actually give you the time and distance equations, and it's so interesting because in our boat you can't. As soon as you're racing, the only electronics you can have are a timer and the compass. So.
It's coaching tools. Anything Kyle said on our show, just take with a grain of salt because he can't read.
Can't read. He can look at colourful pictures though.
Oh dear. All right. Well, let's. Can we get into the actual Olympics? I want to. I just. It was a really unfortunate end to your Olympics. Like you were like 3 races to go. You're lying 6th. You were right there, and then can we talk about that? What happened, or is it too much of a sore point?
No, of course we can. Yeah.
Okay. Basically, it all went Rule 42. It's not your friend. You want to just explain to everyone what happened?
Yeah. So we were sailing. I don't remember the race numbers now, but it was the last day of qualifying for the medal race, and we received our first yellow flag penalty. I think in the second race of the day, and that was actually our first yellow flag in my 8 years of sailing the boat.
Oh, wow.
And so, we spun and we were pretty confused at the time. Actually, we didn't know what it was for. And I remember, back to my laser sailing days, that's a fleet where you really kind of know when you're pushing the limits and you're at the edge of that. Whereas we were actually baffled and we didn't know what it was for. And we spoke to the umpire later and we got some explanations, but anyhow, that happened. We, after the race, we regrouped and just said that was weird. Okay.
So what was it? What did they get you for? Just for, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued on a 49er. What did they?
The first incident was body pumping. There was one big body pump that the best under the moment I can think of or could remember at the time was that Steph was struggling to pop the battens. We jived in some bad air. coming into the bottom mark, in that cone of death where you're just in everyone's bad air and you're in and out of the boat because it's pretty unstable. And she struggled to pop the battens, and I know she went in, grabbed a boom, and then went out and flattened. And then there was another time I had to put the controls on. And so we struggled a bit to pop the battens, and I think that may have been the moment.
Yep.
But yeah, so we didn't associate that with the 42 incident until afterwards when he said that he saw Steph walk in and then walk back out and flatten. So anyhow, that was the first one. We spun and we crawled back in that race and just moved forward. And then the second incident was on the starboard ley line, and it was the few seconds leading up to this I remember so clearly because we had boat to leeward. We were on starboard ley line. Everyone stacked up on starboard ley line. Flat water, light air. It was current had actually been picking up, and it's negative current, pushing us downwind. There was a boat to leeward of us. We were like, they are not making it. All right, that's our bail. The leeward option was out because someone was to leeward of us. We had like 10 boats probably stacked up on the starboard ley line to windward of us. So tacking would have been catastrophic. We either were going to tack and intentionally foul people and just create a wrapped up, or we could, if we bore away, headed down below the mark, foul someone, so we really didn't have any good options. And we said, okay, we're probably just gonna hit it, when you know that you're gonna hit the mark. And so we started pinching around the mark and started slowing down. And at that point I was afraid the centerboard was going to hit the anchor line of the mark. And so boat sailing to windward, I started kind of, I thought, shoot, we're on it. And we mauled the mark. Like our wing was on it, our hull was on it. I thought it was on our centerboard. So I did start very kinetically getting the boat off. I was grabbing the mast to get the boat to windward and the shrouds, and we were just doing anything we could to kind of get ourselves off from being rafted on the mark while all the boats are coming around. So we started to spin because we obviously hit the mark. And in the heat of the moment, we bore away about a boat length away from the mark. We started spinning to leeward of the fleet. So we were in some pretty bad air, doing a very down speed. It was hectic at the moment. It sounds like everything happened slowly, but in the heat of the moment, it actually was kind of stressful. We were like spinning. We hear this whistle, and I remember putting my hand up and saying, "Yeah, we know we hit it. We're spinning." And then we went kite up and kept sailing. And so we were actually just surprised when we went up. Later, the umpire said, "You have a DNE in that race," and we were like, "What are you talking about?" And we just didn't put it together. That was the second yellow flag, and we had to retire, and that was on us, and it's our fault for not knowing the rules better, not really having a situational awareness to check and say, "Oh, wait," we just didn't put two and two together. In the moment, I even said, "Yeah, we're spinning." But in hindsight, well, they wouldn't be flagging us for hitting the mark, and so that doesn't make sense. And I understand, that's all true. But we made a big mistake and paid dearly for it. And we weren't trying to be unsportsmanlike. We certainly weren't trying to cheat. My understanding of Rule 42 in that situation, if you are grounded or rafted on something, you can manhandle the boat off it. You can use kinetics to get the boat off the mark at that time. So it just didn't even register with me. Had we been rocking or pumping or doing something advantageous, maybe I would have thought about the situation differently, but it was just clear in my head, like, oh yeah, we mauled the mark and then I manhandled the boat off of it. Yeah. I didn't even think I was kind of in jeopardy of a kinetics violation, and that's just my fault. It's just my misunderstanding of the situation. So
yeah, it must have been so hard to deal with that, because you have to carry that now because it's of the penalty. You have to carry that on your scorecard, which pushes you out of the medal races. How do you deal with that at an Olympic level? Because making mistakes is how you learn, but it's just really unfortunate that you make a mistake like that at the Olympics, and let's be honest, a lot of other things happened during the Olympics. I could pull up a bunch of other sailors' names where they made, there was things that I wish I hadn't done at the Olympics, So it must be hard, with being such a dedicated athlete.
Yeah, I'd say two things. Going into the Olympics, Steph and I very much said and believed we're not going to let our result define our career, ourselves, who we are as people, as athletes. That's easier said than believed. Like it probably took me a few weeks until after the games. You just kind of want to shake your head and believe it, and say, I'm not defined by this result, but it just doesn't, you can't just like snap your fingers and really truly believe that. So I had to really do a lot of processing, and I came to a few conclusions. Yes, mistakes, they happen, and you have to forgive yourself at some point for it. And in this situation, I think it made us both a little angry, very hungry for the next race, and feel like we had unfinished business because we did make a mistake that changed sort of the outcome of a major event and milestone that we worked so hard toward. And so that did make us, certainly, I think Steph would have continued either way. And I was like, I'm not done here. We have unfinished business. This is not how I'm letting this project end. So it did give me that sort of fire again. But at the same time, I also learned that the Olympics just have some weird sort of special dust that a lot of weird stuff happens for the first time at the games, and everyone is in overdrive. Like the volunteers are in overdrive, and especially the Japanese volunteers were so amazingly friendly. But it's funny, usually they're volunteers at events. And in this case, people had signs, welcome athletes. Today's going to be, good luck today. Bye athletes, and extremely enthusiastic waving, and everyone was just in overdrive. The measurers were looking for things they had never looked for before.
Yep.
Every team is throwing stuff at you in 10 times what it's been in the past. And so, you really do learn that there's just something weird that happens at this event that I think can just give bizarre outcomes in some ways. I don't want to make an excuse, but
not apart from your situation, but was there some pretty unusual behaviour with some of the teams or different nations in regards to that special dust that didn't go the right way?
Yeah, I have to admit there was. So everyone tells you that people are just going to do wacky stuff, and you don't really believe it till you see someone, pull the trigger at the start line like 10 seconds early, and you're like, what are they doing? They're so over. Oh my God, they're over early, and they just do things that they don't normally do. You see mistakes like people fall out of the boat, or we got our main sheet wrapped around a camera mount in one of the races in capsize. I mean, and that's very specifically Olympic. We don't usually have camera mounts on the booms, every ring ding on our boat was brand new, but this camera mount, I really didn't think to make it, flush and whatever. So, you do see some weird stuff.
Yeah.
So that's giving you the drive then out of this. Did it take long, or you'd spoken about it even before you got back to the dock? We're on for next quad.
On the way back to the dock, we talked about how we were both we didn't know the scores exactly. So on the way back to the dock, we talked about, hey, I'm really proud of how hard we fought anyway. And Julia, as soon as we finished that last race and knew it was kind of close and maybe didn't make the medal race, maybe did, because this was after the umpire told us we had a DNE. She said, you guys fought like lions, and I'm so proud of you. And that made us both emotional because we did feel like we rallied and fought really hard and finished the last race in the top 5 or something. And so when we got to shore and realized, this didn't go our way. We didn't talk about the next campaign immediately, but we did say we're going to do the Worlds in November in Oman for sure. We're not ending on this note. So we sent our good boat to Oman and everything. And it took me 6 or 8 weeks after the games to say, okay, I'm in again. Whereas Steph rebounded faster, and we're just pretty different individuals in that way. I emote, I'm emotional. I take time to process things. I, express emotion, and Steph prefers to sort of just charge on and get on with it and get back in the gym and go. But what I've learned from a lot of my teammates is that everyone hits those sort of those crashes after the games at really different times. And I gave myself time and space to do that and spend time with my family, and, said I need to just check out for several weeks. Whereas I think Steph was probably back in the gym the next week. Wow. And then I had to have surgery later in the winter. And she said that was a tough time for her because it's when she really let herself slow down. Because I was home with surgery for 8 hard weeks. And so I think she sort of processed it a bit later.
Almost like she went into sort of forget about it mode and just kept pushing as she was. Yeah. Well, it's a live and learn process, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And it's different for everyone. It's tough with teammates when you're doing that at different times,
So the process now, the qualification, everything for Marseille, that's all underway. Teams, when's that all getting picked? All those sorts of things.
We don't know, actually. The trials is not very clear. The country qualification is not very clear. But it's just been so fun to get racing again. And we've got new sails, new masts. And I think like the year and a half before the games was so weird with COVID that we only sailed against the same 20 boats at pretty specific venues, and we were missing all of those big, like Palma and Yare. We were missing the big classic events. So this past spring was just so fun to get back on the race course with everyone and see the other teams and have the chaotic mark roundings. I could tell some of the younger teams hadn't been in big fleets because there was just crazy stuff happening and people were kind of loose at the mark roundings. And so it was a pretty fun element to see again.
Did you head over to Spain? Were you in Spain this year?
Yeah, we sailed Palma and Yare. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
Before I got on the circus bike.
Sorry. You just keep reminding me. I keep going back there. It's fun. No, but so how did you enjoy Palma and sailing over there?
Palma is such a wonderful event. It's got to be one of my favorite ever. Big breeze, big waves. It was epic. It was good. I had abdominal surgery in December, though, and I was honestly still recovering and not fully 100%.
Right.
In March when we sailed, but bless Steph and her patience, because I was like crawling across the boat half the time. I mean, I fell out of the boat at a leeward mark. She was like, "Whoa, I haven't seen you do that ever." I was just doing weird stuff because I just wasn't strong, and we were okay with that. We were like, ready or not, we're sailing Palma, and I was not ready, but we had a blast. I mean, we had one wipe out at the finish line that felt like a car accident.
Wow.
We came in like ripping, totally overstood, planing in, passed a few boats at the finish line, bore away hard around the pin, and I just couldn't get up and in fast enough. And so I was dragging behind the boat, kite full in the air. We capsized. The other fleet was out ready to start racing. So we were like, our whole fleet, the second fleet, all of the coach boats, and we were right by the harbor entrance, and it was pretty fantastic.
Awesome.
So Palma was awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. The old windsurfer body drag, but on a 49 FX.
Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. I had the spin sheets, and I was like, if I let go of this, I can't get back to the boat. If I don't let go of this, the boat won't capsize. And Steph was laughing at me. On the beach later, I was like, I can't believe you were laughing at me. I was needed help.
At least we'll make the bloopers real.
Yeah, that's it. The thing about this next Olympiad, I'm not going to call it a quad because we've only got 3 years. I don't even know what the term is, and that a quad is an American term we've never used in Australia. So we've got our own. But in this next, I don't know. Anyway, this next 3 years, it's a whole different Olympics for sailing this time, because we've had so much changes in the classes, and the major driver of that is to make sure that we've got equal participation, male versus female. So we've got the equal number of women. How do you feel about having more women in the sport?
Well, I feel great. I feel like it's kind of silly that it's taken this long to get to this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
But really wonderful. I mean, I hope that the future involves a lot more open co-ed classes. Yeah. I think that would be a really great way for the sport to go. Right now, the boats are really specific to body weight and size. And if we can get away from that, I think it'll open the sport up to a lot more, be more inclusive.
Yeah. We're 100% on that page as well. So, it's going to be a great Olympics to watch just to see because, for example, in the 470 men, there was a really rigid structure at the top of the tree, and now that's all blown up. And who's going to be winning, no one knows, sort of thing with the mixed. And do you have a male skipper or a female skipper? How do you structure it? We watched that happen in the NACRAs, for an Olympiad. So this whole dynamic is going to be interesting. One of the discussions that we have a little bit is with foiling, the advent of foiling, that once mastery of foiling happens, you're going to go to lighter and lighter crews because the less weight you've got on the boat, the quicker you foil. And the future may be female dominated is potentially if foiling becomes the way. How do you feel about dominating men?
Well, I had an answer until you finished the question with that.
Go back to your other answer.
Okay. Okay. I do hope we see a sort of trickle down. If we reach gender parity at the top of the sport, I really hope we see. In our country, it's really a retention of the girls and the women sailors into the professional realm. We probably have gender parity at a young age in the recreational sailing, and then we really lose that somehow to the professional field. And so, I really hope that the more opportunities we have at the Olympic level will help create pathways for more professional sailing women. But it definitely has to be a mentality shift, among the male sailors, and our whole community in general.
Things happen, like we went for a youth discussion with Hugo, one of our Australian youth sailors, and the thing that stood out for me when we did an interview with him is when he was talking about his competitors, he didn't differentiate between sex. He didn't differentiate that. He just talked about everyone as equal. So I think the change is coming, so and it makes our sport better. We've noticed, I think Bicey and I discussed it when we were working on the Volvo, is that we noticed that once we bought the all-female and all-male teams had their own various problems, but when you got mixed teams, you got better quality outcomes. Yeah. So, it's definitely noticeable, adding females, because offshore is still a long way from getting parity. And obviously there's what you said about we lose people, we get them young and it is equal, and then they disappear. That's the one element we have to fix. But I guess my final question, because we're sort of out of time, my final question is, will the US come back as a dominant sailing nation, do you think, or there's still a long way to go? Is the foundation there for you guys?
I think the foundation is there, and it's going to take time. I don't think that we're going to see changes happen overnight or within one cycle. What I do know is that the U.S. is taking a really different approach to the Olympic sailing team with Paul's leadership, and a lot of it just comes down to money and resources. I think one way we as a country have fallen behind in the last 20 years is that we basically failed to create a professional infrastructure for sailors in their 20s and 30s. Sailors have to go it alone here and raise a ton of money and put their careers on hold, and oftentimes rely on their families for longer periods of time, and that makes it pretty difficult to be a professional full-time Olympic campaigning sailor. So sorry, maybe that wasn't totally clear, but in the last 20 years, we haven't had the professional infrastructure that I think other countries have.
That makes total sense.
Part of it's that our team's not is not government funded, which a lot of other countries are. And so the fundraising burden has fallen on the sailors largely in the last 20 years. And Paul is working really hard and making a lot of progress towards changing that. I think U.S. sailors will always have a role, should always play a role in fundraising, because in the States, the way our taxes work, there's incentive to donate. It's a tax write-off if you donate to our Olympic campaign, for example. Mm-hmm. And so we should always be taking advantage of that, and using that avenue to find support and resources. But the majority of the funding and the resources have to come from the NGB, which is U.S. Sailing, and Paul gets that, and he's expanding the budget. And we've looked at we look at the Australian sailing team and the Kiwis and GBR, and as sailors, we're sort of jealous sometimes, and we're like, gosh, look at those vans they're driving around, and wow, look at that squad they have. We get really jealous.
And is that why you're riding past on your circus bike?
Exactly. Right. Oh man.
I think every
we admire you for that.
Yeah. Every nation's jealous of the Pommy team, that's for sure, the way they're funded. So
yeah. So that's changing, but it takes a lot of time, and then you've got to get the sailors to buy into it, because there's also an element that Steph and I have basically created this small business together, and so it's a big change to then say, okay, we're going to now start just being part of a squad, and we're up for it. We want that to work, but it just takes time.
So I've got one final question for you, Maggie. Once the Olympics are over, do you have a desire to go offshore?
I don't know.
Haven't thought about it yet?
No, I really haven't. I know I want a family someday, and there's a clock on that, but there's nothing that says beyond, later in life I can't do offshore stuff. So
Yeah, sure.
I would love to and hope to, but I'm so tunnel vision right now on FXs that would be such a dream.
Well, I don't have a final question for you, but I do want to say good luck as you move towards the next Olympics, because we all know how hard it is, and especially in what you've just explained to us there. So you've got our backing, and there's one good thing that happens when people come on bar karate: they generally win races. So you're in the right spot.
Yeah.
You guys didn't even tell me that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we don't have to tell you. You've got to now go and do it.
It's a pretty
Okay. Well, talk about pressure.
No,
but
just jokes. We wish you all the best for sure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure talking to you guys, and I love what you're doing. And this is such a cool way to kind of get to know other sailors, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. See ya.
Good on you. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
How good was that, boys?
loved it.
Interesting to hear like the pathways from the college, the way that's supported and resourced, and obviously the US sailing team are working hard now to kind of bridge that gap once that finishes, to translate that into results. But a couple of quick ones for you.
Right.
I've had the greatest brainwave.
Right.
Oh, here we go.
Here we
Jordan,
go.
sit down. That's just.
You're going to love this, BP.
I'm looking forward to it already.
Mould 11s for the Olympics.
Oh,
Mate, co-ed teams,
oh.
all the boats, bar the outliers anyway, they all rate together. Co-ed teams, 2 male, 2 female. It'll be the best racing ever.
You know what?
They have a life. They have a life.
On it.
Don't act
You are
like
on
you're
it.
not impressed.
What a great idea.
All right, I'm going to bring this up with World Sailing.
All right.
Next, I didn't mention it throughout the during the discussion with Maggie, but the mullet story in New Zealand.
Yes.
There is a small sore spot in New Zealand. I'll tell you why. Danny Doolan's picture at 2009. I catch up with I see a few girls from Australia, well, from Adelaide actually, just ran into them. And I mentioned to them about, Auckland's not so different, Adelaide. They still run the mullet. And I pointed to this dude over there in the middle of Danny Doolan's. See, check out his mullet. And he comes over to me. What do you say? And I said, oh, mate, that is a tremendous mullet. I woke up about 10 minutes later with a very fat lip.
Awesome.
So
Great
to
story.
all our Kiwi mates, you do sport a good mullet, and I say that with the safety of being behind a mic this time.
It's smart. I do genuinely and desperately want, and I made the
Mullet.
joke in the interview, but I genuinely would love to see the US sailing team members that can grow a moustache go for it. I think it's just, it would be just team building. Like, surely if you go to the Olympics or the next thing up will be the sailing world championships. Like, if they came with moustaches, it would just be wonderful, wouldn't it?
And maybe a real tight perm. Shit. We definitely know we're not getting Paul on anytime soon.
Oh, he's pretty good, I think. He'll be all right.
No.
He'll be all right.
All right, finally out of that, do yourself a favour, check out the history of John Nadeau, Maggie's grandfather, and his history on the lake. Check this. What was it? 7 wind dances. One of them, the third wind dance was the 12-metre Intrepid.
Is that
Oh,
right?
really?
Intrepid successfully defended the America's Cup in 67 and 70. The last timber boat to do so. It says wood's for the fire, by the way. After being converted to ocean racing in 83, wind dancer Intrepid
There we go.
started from 83 to 87.
Wow.
How cool is that?
That is very cool. Very cool.
Very, very cool indeed.
It's probably
Not to mention Wind Dancer 4, Frez 53, which was launched as Bumblebee.
Oh, there we go.
Wow.
So,
He's a
You're pulling out
collector.
some good stories here, Bossy.
He's
absolutely.
a collector.
So check it out. Bloody good.
Bloody good.
64 races, though. That's how are you going with the Port Lincoln race?
Oh, I'm up to
You
20 probably, I'd say. But 64.
a big-
mate, I will not make that long.
No.
Give you the drum right.
44 more from now.
Flick will have a few words on that one, I reckon.
No, just physically, mate.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you.
Right. All right, well, let's move it on, boys.
Yep.
Any club events of noticed?
Hang on a sec. Hang on. Wait.
Hang on. BP's checking the run sheet.
I had it. Club events.
Love the prep, BP.
Yeah, well, you caught me off guard again
Oh, sorry, mate.
because I didn't realise this segment was coming up straight away. Anyway, yeah, we've got one.
Have you
And
read the run sheet?
No.
Okay.
The last 112 times.
All right, club events.
160.
Go.
No. Seriously. It's a long time listener. He loves the podcast. I'm gonna put this forward. Cedric Wesley Canepa has got in touch with us and says there is a cool race going on in the Pacific Northwest. How's that going? This must be early in the morning. Called the Race to Alaska. It is back to basic kind of race, similar to the F18 race in Florida, which is the Worrell 1000. Well done, Team Australia, by the way. And they're heading up there and would like a bit of publicity. So he's done what we asked. He's contacted us and said, give them some publicity. So Race to Alaska, there it is. No website.
Thank you, climate change. Just allowing the waterways to open up a little more.
Well, not on a serious note. Yeah, but anyway, I guess that's what you do. Google Race to Alaska, and he says they have a very funny media team. Well, they can't have because we're not there. And they have made a movie about the race as well. Oh, that's why, because they've made a movie. So we don't really show our faces.
Oh, okay. It just screams excitement, doesn't it? Like that's just something completely different that'd be worth giving a go, you know? Like
like adventure.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
I think it would be a good content to interview either some of the winners or some of the head some of the head writers for the race. They would love the publicity. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Maybe we should.
And that we shall. We shall.
Well, thank you very much, Cedric.
Beautiful. Cool. Righto. Then I guess the next one, of course, is to ask the Jack Lloyd Listener of the Week. Any ideas? Any nominations?
Well,
got a couple came in. Shout out to long-time listener, long-time poster, Sean Wagner, just sending a bit of hilarity in. We will not be publishing that photo, by the way, Sean.
It's dead against our ways.
And, the only other nominee I have is Australia Post, currently getting about 3 emails per day.
For sheer content, absolutely. We did discuss this off air. I think it's amazing. Just the amount of effort they're putting into being a part of our show. Exclusive delivery insights. I mean, good on you, Australia Post. I just wish you'd stick to your word.
On sheer volume. I reckon we should just put out there when we publish, which we're recording 24 hours before publishing. I'd just say let's give it to Xavier Dua. The little Aussie lap starts today as we're publishing. So tomorrow as we're recording. And he's off. So he's taken his mini transat around Australia trying to set the fastest lap possible. He's a committed listener to this show. In fact, he reckons he's taken a whole backlog, and that's what he's going to keep himself entertained and keep himself awake as it goes around. So
looking forward to catching up with him.
Yeah.
He's certainly generated some serious press out of it as
on
well.
Sunrise and all sorts of that's for our international listeners. That's our morning breakfast news show, I guess.
Show, so.
Sunrise. And one thing we haven't touched on.
What?
Lisa Blair.
Well, that's we're
Jack.
Oh, we're getting
Jack Lloyd, listener of the week. We need a nominate.
We got to make a decision. Yeah. So Lisa, we'll get to that. That's another
run sheet.
Yeah. Read the run sheet, baby. Okay, so that's my nomination. Any others? We're all
Xavier, no, I'm with you. Yeah. And unfortunately, because he's just left, the merch pack won't make it in time.
He'll be following him around.
The merch pack might be what Australia.
Hey,
what
just
it is.
quietly,
You're onto
thanks to our listeners out there. We had a good few orders coming through this week.
Oh, awesome.
Probably time to restock the merch cupboard.
Yeah, I was thinking
as a matter
about
of
that
fact.
this week.
So
I've got a couple of ideas, boys.
good time. We can restock the hoodies.
Well, as
Your
I
beanies.
sit here in Sydney's cooled down very much this week. I've donned the hoodie.
Yep.
It's a wonderful top.
There's a problem
Nick.
with our hoodie, boys.
What's that?
There's a big problem with our hoodie.
Your wife keeps stealing it.
No, she's got her own now. Where I live doesn't get super cold, and that is one hell of a warm hoodie, is all I'll say.
It is an awesome hoodie.
I don't get to wear mine. It's too hot.
Yeah, how's your power bill gone? You've got the air conditioner running just so you can wear your hoodie.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, climate change.
All right.
It's hot time with Bice.
Never gets old.
Oh, one Harrison Fisher and I had lunch together yesterday and actually listened to Koshy. We went to a bit of a business lunch with Koshy as the headline act. It was good.
Yeah.
Well worth, if you get the chance, give it a crack. Anyway, got 3 key things, boys. And this is the time we mention Lisa Blair.
Sorry.
Yeah. Of which she has taken 10 days off of the record of the circumnavigation around Antarctica.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So what an effort. I saw some footage of her coming into Albany, Western Australia. She looked fresh.
Yeah, she
fresh
looked
as a
fit.
daisy. You know what I noticed? She had a headlamp on her head, and I'm like, I wonder how many AAA batteries you need to take to maintain, or how many headlamps you need. Because you guaranteed first thing you lose on an ocean race is your headlamp.
Then find
Within a
it in
few
your
minutes.
pocket when you get home.
But taking nothing away from Lisa, that is a monumentous effort.
Yep. Absolutely.
So big shout out to her and her team. It's been publicised well, probably doesn't quite make it as far as it should in mainstream media, but hopefully people can keep pushing it out there, sharing it. It's, hats off.
Yeah. The other thing I think is that interested, she took, like we did on the Volvo, she took a bit of a few study devices for scientific research, for ocean research on the journey as well. So collecting a bit of information, including CO2 levels, salinity levels, temperature, all that sort of stuff. So that'll be of value as well. So because one of the things in this space and why we hear about it so much in sailing is that our boats go to places that no other boats go to, so we're able to research in the remotest areas. So sailing actually has real value in that place. So, achieving in multiple areas. It's a great outcome.
Great outcome.
Congratulations, Lisa.
Second thing on the list, just a heads up, Project Speed, Team New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
Been going hard at it. Glenn had the project's, I forget the exact name of the, what do you call it, boat? A car, a trike?
It.
Whatever it's going to be called.
It.
Had it fired up to about 160 Ks an hour just at the airport there, just out of the big airport from New Zealand.
Yeah.
From Auckland. Looked a bit loose at times, but knowing that area, it gets bloody gusty there.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of just a bit on the edge. And they still plan to go to Lake Gardner in SA. We're going to have a big contingent to go and help support that, but it might have to be in about bloody 3 years' time because she's full of water at the minute.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Just gonna say,
Gonna be for a while.
Thank you, climate change, La Nina or La Nina or whatever your name is. But been pissing down for bloody months here.
You've got to give it to Ashby, though. Like, to test on New Zealand runways, they're
Where's this
short.
going?
They're short because they haven't got jets in New Zealand. They're still on the old prop planes. So, they don't need to build them too long, and, you've got to move the sheep out the way. every time you do a run. So
I wondered what that big knobby thing on the front of the it was. Is that what it's for? To
it's
just get
sheep
the sheep
removal
out of the way?
device.
Sheep removal.
It'd be pretty exhilarating.
Oh, it would be. I love what they're doing. I love what they're doing. I love it. I think it would be a great fun.
I just want to see him though on Lake Gedney once it's all fully set up. Does the run and then a massive handbrakey when he gets to the end. Just
like a big burnout.
In all honesty, in 100% honesty, if I was the Kiwis, I'd come and do the hay plane, like just between Hay and Balranald. That
Yeah,
run.
I know. Yep, know the road well. Yep.
Yep, she's long and straight and flat and no trees.
It's got sheep.
Yeah, well, but you could.
lucky that's why they got an Aussie driving it, so they don't always stop. Way, see something on the side of the road?
Oh, look.
Well, it's kangaroos here.
All right, enough. Patrick, otherwise, I'll wake up with another fat lip.
We won't be able
We
to go
love
back
you.
to
We
New
love you,
Zealand.
K1W1s.
Yeah, we love it. Next, anything?
Next, yes, big event has started. TP52 Super Series is back up and running at time of recording. We're halfway through the regatta.
Yeah.
Quantum Racing lead, Platoon second, Phoenix third. So, they got 9 boats. And, gents, are you aware this is the 10th season of the rebranded 52 series called the Super Series?
It's insane, isn't it?
So they've been around now, these boats, since, I'm going to say, 01, 02, the first TP being Rosebud that ever came out. And another little tidbit, this is one of 5 regattas, I believe. But when Sled won it last year, and we mentioned at the time they were the third only to win in its 10-year history of the Super Series, with Quantum and Azura kind of trading places or wins throughout the years since it was started. So another, of course, Azura's not there this year, but a very strong, well-refined fleet. All the best yachties in the world get around. It's up in Bayona, north tip of Spain. Beautiful place. So they're going to keep an eye on that, and we'll keep an eye on the series throughout the season.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's exciting. 16 points, 18 points, 22 points for second, third currently, and then to 29 for fourth. So that's after day 3. So as we say, we're not recording. It's still going, but it's great racing, isn't it?
So we're going on the be consistent to win analogy there, Bicey.
Well, let's not forget last year the top 3 were within 3 points of each other.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
The whole series. So you definitely cannot afford to carry any big scores.
Absolutely.
Good fun. We'd all want to be there, and best of luck to all the teams. Genuinely, all the top hitters just jumping on board for that one. Okay, cool. Very cool. Anything else from you, Mr. Bice?
No, that's me.
I do want to bring up the GC32s for the sailors who need trainer hulls. That was a bit rude, wasn't it? The catamaran sailors are dominating the world at the moment. The GC32s are underway, and the Team Rockwool and Red Bull Racing just smacking each other at the moment on that one. So, she's exciting. So you'll see a lot of those sailors are actually sailing, particularly Team Rockwool. They're doing the Sail GP, and then they're jumping on the GC32. So that one, gone.
I guess it's down to, you just cannot not afford to be part of any foiling catamaran circuit at this point in time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's
The
exactly
more
true.
time racing, of course, you can just sail back and forth, but if you put yourself in a full racing scene, and the more experience, refine your craft, as you've always said, Jordan, it makes for some bloody good viewing as well.
They're obviously not only cool boats, the GC32s, but also sailing, Lake Garda, which, is, if you've never sailed Garda, then make sure you do. It's a dream. But then also a little bit of banter coming off the boats. I don't know if you guys have caught this.
love it.
But they've been saying, it's the falling series, cat series, where we're not leashed on.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Hope that doesn't come bite you in the ass. Jesus.
A little bit of an ego dig there.
I love it. I
Yeah,
love
no,
it.
We're into it. We're into it. Keep
We
it up,
have
boys.
to encourage Baccarati screams out every time, bring the banter. And, so
100%.
I was actually going to ask Maggie. She was talking about her coach. I was just about to go down that path. Have you got some of her words? Because it's just always good to know, isn't it? She could have had some new ones for us, but I missed the opportunity. So Maggie, if you want to send them through. Cheers at barkarati.com.
the heckle.
Send a few heckles through. Yeah.
We should ask that as just a genuine question every time we get another country on. What is the standard heckle from your country? When you cross tax, what do you say? It'd be good.
Bonjour. Au revoir.
Hola, amigo.
All right. Fingal Cup has been run and won. Congratulations, Peter Posma.
Yes.
Dutch.
Yep.
Saw that.
Yep.
Solid.
I think the Finn Masters will be next on the
How many boats? 429 or something?
It's amazing, isn't it? So that very excited for that. And then the lasers.
Yeah,
We're
super
deep into
excited
the
there.
lasers now.
Even though they're lasers. It's great. Sorry, guys. Great work by the Aussies.
We're cheeky this week, aren't we? We've just been putting the boot into everyone.
Yeah, boys, you're going to have to pull your head in.
No, seriously.
I've already taken the piss out of climate change.
Yeah, all day. Okay, so this
Serious note.
Interesting. So at the moment, how many races? We're into the final. We've had 3 of the final races. So we've got 3 races left when we're recording. So I'll be finished by the time this goes to air. At the moment, Jean-Baptiste Bernard is leading on a net score of 30 points. Pavlos Kontidis is next at a net score of 57. So you'd have to think,
Done and dusted.
no, not in lasers. There's so many people, so there's still plenty to come. But you can collect some bad ones. But I will say, old Jean Baptiste, his scorecard is looking pretty nice. Race 1 on 19, and then 3, 2, 3, 2, 2, 1, 4, and a 13. Oh, the wheels are coming off. He's got a loose wheel. So very nice scorecard.
Hope Ashby doesn't say that.
Tom Saunders, our New Zealand buddy, taking his mullet to 3rd place at the moment. So.
Sailing around.
Man, imagine how good the Kiwis would be if they shaved those mullets off. The windage.
I think they'd get cold. Maybe sunburn is the problem.
We're going to have to get it. We're going to have to get a Kiwi on that so they can get a bit of a right of reply at the moment, I think.
Top fleet, isn't it? When you look at the still exciting stuff, and the Aussies, a new breed coming through, so we're watching that with interest. So that's exciting too. A few made it into the gold fleet, so that's good. Finn Alexander is there.
Yeah, he's a dedicated. So he's
young Luke Elliott.
Yeah, cool. All right, so plenty on. Looks like the Milo, the dog, has come into play.
The dog's ready to go for a little walk.
Ready to go walkies.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a good one. I really appreciate Maggie Shea coming onto the show. She was fantastic.
I do too, and I really hope she finds her O. She said
Maggie
she's looking
O'Shea.
for. Yep. So we'll help her with that.
And BP, mate. Yeah. What next time we speak? Will you be in the US? Is that?
Yes, I believe
Will
I
you
will
be in Indonesia?
No, I'll be in the US.
San
On the
Fran.
West Coast, San Fran. Yeah.
San Fran.
Just remember, bring back the rainbow.
Yeah, well, you know what it's like when you get on these tours. It's boatyard bed, boatyard bed, boatyard bed. So
Sure.
anyway, we're
Sure,
excited.
mate.
We're excited. Boat number 2.
All right. Good luck, mate. All right.
Rightio.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great
you
week.
later.
I'll 11 for the Olympics.
Hello, Milo.
Why do I always
my way.
It's Uncle Jordan.